Welcome to the Live Full podcast, where we talk about all things faith, family, and living fully the life God wants for you. On today's episode, we'll be talking about overcoming cancer, living your life without fear of the future, and even being creative in your life. Now, today's guest that I have with me today is someone really special. Her name is Dorothy. Dorothy, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, Dorothy. I've known Dorothy for quite a number of years now, actually, because we went to the same campus. I love Dorothy. She's always been the creative one, the fun one, the cool one. And she has so many amazing testimonies and stories to share. So maybe why don't we start with that? Dorothy, why don't you tell us a bit more about yourself?
Okay, so I am a mother of one teenage boy, married to a very creative guy, a
Yes.
bearded man. And actually, all my life, I have been very involved in creative things.
Yeah.
You know, like I like art, I like painting, and then in my job, I worked as a editorial consultant. Um, and what has been an underlying thread in my life is that I have always been very God directed.
Yeah.
You know, because we believe that God created us and He created us for a purpose.
Yeah.
So there is always this underlying thread of asking God, what's the next season? What do you want me to do? And the interesting thing is, I found that He's interested in everything in our life.
Yeah.
He's not just interested in the Sunday part, or when you're in church or doing spiritual activities. For me, I feel that everything is underpinned by God's presence and His direction.
Good. Yeah.
So what happened was, I started a business at His direction. So that was when I was 25, very young, absolutely the wrong person to be starting a business. No money, no contacts. But the Lord was saying, start an editorial consultancy.
Wow.
So I started that. And then along the way, He would give me, very clear directions. So fast forward to, I was in my 50s, I think. Yeah. And then He gave me this idea to start a calligraphy business, right? Online, to promote calligraphic art, Western calligraphy. But this is something that has not been done before.
Yeah.
So when He first told me about it, it's like, no, I don't know. I Googled and nobody else is doing this. So I felt like, okay, well, I got to give it a try lah.
Yes.
So the Lord gave me this idea about doing an international mentorship. So what I was supposed to do is I will get established artists from different countries, and then they would mentor rising or aspiring artists from different countries.
Wow.
So it's a cross-cultural exchange.
Yeah.
And the Lord said, all these things will be undertaken and no money will change hands.
Wow.
So I was like, who will teach you for no money? And it's for a year, right?
Yes.
So I was telling the Lord, I said, God, this is like not very good idea. But anyway, I pursued it and it all came through. So right now, this business is called The Art of Letters. We've been running for 5 cycles. So the story actually begins, the cancer story, actually, I have to start from there. The very first time that we launched the Art of Letters International Mentorship.
Yeah.
Some months into this program, I discovered that I had cancer.
Yes.
Right? So that was July 2021. And I kind of was really worried about whether I could push this program through. In the meantime, I was still doing my editorial consultancy. I was still homeschooling my son. So I prayed and the Lord didn't give me new instructions. So I said, okay, then I have to do it. I just have to continue.
Yeah.
What was so amazing was that when I told my community, the mentors and the mentees, say, hey, I've discovered that I have cancer, but don't worry, I'm committed to you. We're going to push this thing through. And everybody had sort of like a shot of adrenaline.
Yeah.
And it just amplified the impact of this program.
Wonderful.
Because they saw me living my life through the cancer.
Yeah.
They saw me appearing online to have meetings with them. I hosted the exhibition, the events with my head, no hair.
Yeah.
They saw me going through the whole chemo, radio. And on the day that we launched the exhibition, my oncologist was there.
Wow.
Yeah, so everybody applauded for him. Say, guys, this is my doctor. He's been keeping me alive, and then they cheered.
Yeah. No, it's
So
true. You look so good now, and obviously you're in a much better place,
yeah,
right, than
yeah,
before.
yeah,
But maybe you can share a bit more details about that. What was that like for you? Discovering the exact diagnosis, and
yeah.
then just that journey for you. What was it like with your family? How did you respond to that?
Okay, so what happened was it was during the COVID lockdown.
Mm,
I had just had my COVID jabs, and then a few weeks later, I continued to feel this pain. I
yeah.
started to have a pain. So actually, for the longest time, I had a lump in my breast. Okay,
Okay.
ladies, please don't do like I've done. Go and get it checked. But
Yes.
it comes and goes,
Yeah.
and then I'm like in the low risk group. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I breastfed my child. So I just thought nothing of it. But when the pain did not resolve after a couple of weeks, my husband said, "Okay, let's go and get it looked at." So we went to a polyclinic.
Yeah.
And the first thing the doctor said, he just looked at me, prodded a bit, then he said the C word.
Okay.
So I was a little bit offended because I was thinking like, how can you tell that it's
Yeah.
cancer from just a cursory,
Yes.
we asked him, how sure are you? He said, I'm about 80-90%,
Wow.
right? This is important, it's urgent, we're going to expedite. He wrote a letter to get us to see a specialist at SGH. And within 3 days, I was sitting in the surgeon's office, right? And she also, like poked, prodded, and so on. And then she also said, with certainty, it's cancer,
Yeah.
right? So when she said that, um, it was like you are in a state of denial because it's like, what? Why is this happening to me, right? Normally,
Yeah.
I would be very much, I mean, the Lord would speak to me and tell me things ahead of time, but He was silent this time.
Yeah.
Then I felt like the rug was pulled out from under me. So what did we do? Kay and I, we went to Botanic Gardens,
Mm.
held hands. And I remember just feeling like, hey, I want the whole world to stop right now. I just want
Yeah.
this moment to stop.
Mm.
I want to enjoy the sun, the rustling of the leaves,
Yeah.
the light that is falling on the grass. I just want to take it all in. I feel like I have not really lived.
Yeah.
And then suddenly this,
Yeah.
and you just want the world to stop so that you could live,
Yeah.
right? So this was actually pivotal, that instant in the Botanic Gardens where I felt like I wanted the world to stop for me so I
Yeah.
could live. So anyway, as between the two of us, we talked about very practical things like what's in our bank account,
Yeah.
how long can we last without me working, and then what will happen with Kaylin, the son, and homeschooling, blah, blah, blah. And, housekeeping duties, he would have to
Take
look
that
after
on. Yeah.
me and take it on and then things like that. It was very practical, and that helped to stabilize a lot of our emotions
Yeah.
because you start to go into a problem solving mode.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, and we were also, our hearts were like the sail, you're trying to see the wind,
Yeah.
which way is God blowing and
Mm.
what does He want from us? Do I fight this? Do I believe for a miracle?
Yeah.
Do I not, And actually, that is very, very early on. The moment I knew that it was cancer, and in my heart, I connected with the Lord, and He gave me three things.
Yeah.
First of all, a verse from Isaiah. It says, "You will walk through the fire, you will not be burned. You will
Wow.
walk through the water, you will not drown." And I knew from that promise, He wanted me to go through chemo and radio.
Mm.
I was very upset. I was like, no, it's a terrible, I mean, from all accounts, it's a very difficult and terrible experience.
Yeah.
But the Lord promised that He will protect me from the after effects,
Yeah.
from the side effects. That's one. And secondly, He says, I will not die from this,
Mm.
right? And He will be with me. So that was something that was so stabilizing.
Mm.
It gave me the foundation to move forward.
Yes.
And He also told me to do everything that the doctor instructed me to do. And normally by nature, I'm like quite
Yeah.
stubborn. I
Yeah.
want to take responsibility for my health, right? So even if
Yes.
the doctor tells me something, I'm going to research it and think like,
Mm-hmm.
are there
Mm-hmm.
other better ways? But the Lord was saying, just do whatever the doctor tells you. So that was how we rallied,
Wow.
right? And then we decided not to tell anybody until I am very, very certain with the biopsy results,
Yeah.
right, that it was cancer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was how it went down at the beginning. And in the initial months, not months, maybe like couple of weeks, it was a bit of a roller coaster. Like, I'm gonna be great, and then oh no, what's gonna happen to me? And a bit like that. But every time you roller coaster, you just come before the Lord, and then He reminds you of His promises,
Yeah.
right? And then you know that you're just going to have to pull through. So it's like a sudden turn in the trajectory of
Yes.
my life.
Unexpected.
Very like a bolt, from the blue.
Yeah.
So, but it solidified certain things that you always knew. Like you always knew that you could count on God.
Yeah.
You always knew that He would be there for you in the good and the bad times.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you have a challenge like that coming at you, then you grit your teeth and you say, okay, no, this is what faith is for.
That's right.
Faith is for the overcoming. Faith is for the difficult times. And God is for impossible situations. So
Yeah.
that was that. Yeah.
Good. And where are you at now? With
Now, wow. Okay, so I went through surgery. I went through chemo. I think it was 16 rounds. And the Lord protected me from the side effects.
Yeah.
I lost my hair, yes, my taste buds, but I did not suffer like a lot of other people did. It was quite miraculous.
Yeah.
Went through radiation, 15 rounds, and then after that, I was in a state of recovery lah. So
Yeah.
by now it's 2021, so now it's 25, so it's 4 years. I feel like you don't ever go back to where you used to be,
Yeah.
but you hit a new normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So energy levels and all that, it may not be exactly as it was before, but
Yeah.
I'm very happy.
Yeah.
I'm productive.
Wow, thank God.
Yeah.
No, that's really good. I think for many people who might go through something like that, it's not just a physical kind of impact on their lives. I feel like actually it affects their emotional grit,
Yes.
even just their perspective of life too.
Yes.
But I know I've seen your life, and you are like joyful. You're still pursuing, like we talked about this calligraphy, and all of that. You're pursuing like what you enjoy, what you love. You have a great family. What helped you with that perspective shift? I think you mentioned some of these key moments that have happened throughout your cancer journey. But things like that can happen to anyone, right? It might not be cancer, it might be an accident. It might be something else that, life throws these curveballs at you and you don't expect them. But what helped you to maintain a good perspective?
I think it's the battle that is in the mind is something you have to be very intentional about.
Yes.
You have to be very aware of the thoughts that are making their way, journeying through your mind. And a lot of people don't realize that not every thought that comes into your mind originated from you. Sometimes it's from malevolent forces around that are trying to bring you down. And so you have to arrest every thought and examine them, like interrogate them. Like, who are you? Where did you come from? Sometimes it's from tiredness. Sometimes you are hungry, Sometimes you just have one too many jabs and you just don't like strangers poking and prodding you, and that's it, you've had enough. But sometimes it's from physically you're weak and vulnerable. Yeah. So I think that I wasn't always, positive and on top of things, but I understood that the ebb and flow of the thoughts and the feelings, and I learned to ride the waves.
Yeah.
So some days I'm just sad. I'm like, oh, I have cancer.
Yeah. Very real.
But and it's okay to feel that way because it's so normal.
Yep.
So I allow myself to grieve and be sad, and I take it to the Lord.
Yeah.
I sing a sad song or I read the Psalms, where the psalmist is crying out. So the underpinning thing is that I always come back to the Lord and I pour out my heart to Him.
Yeah,
Whether
it's
I'm
often
happy,
grief, right?
oh yeah, yeah, you do. You grieve the body that you once had and that you're never going to have again. You grieve that you once had no cancer in your life, but now it's a part of your story. So there is the good things and the bad things, and all of it, you bring it to the Lord. So He embraces all of it. He embraces you when you're crying. He embraces you when you are strong, and with faith and all that. So I think that this is something important lah.
Mm.
Because I have seen or talked to other women who feel that they must put up this hallelujah,
Yeah.
spiritual bypassing.
Yeah.
That's what it's called, the
Yeah.
technical term, where you think that you can just fake it and suppress your feelings. I think this is very unhealthy.
Exactly, right? Come
Very.
face to face with it. I mean, even in the Bible, in Psalms, right? With
Oh, yeah.
David, I mean, he's always very, open, vulnerable about how he feels. He always ends up saying, no, God, I worship you, I praise you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You are, you are the most amazing God, I exalt you.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's always a moment for grief also, right? There's a moment to come face to face with what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that,
Nothing.
right?
Yeah.
Did you have
In
moments
fact,
where you like got angry with God
angry.
or like upset?
I think more like, why didn't you tell me?
Give me a
Because
heads up.
if you are used to the idea of that God has this, he's always like giving you hints or telling you things ahead of time, and that's always been that way for me and him.
Yeah.
But when he didn't tell me about this, I was like, what's up? What is this? At least
Yeah.
give me a little sign, right? Um, yeah, but then you kind of learn to trust. You have already learned to trust,
Yeah.
so that continues.
Yeah.
Right? Cancer was like you took an exam,
Mm.
but you have studied this all your life.
Wow.
So when you take the exam, it's just la la la. You learn that you know these things because
Yes.
you took the test and then you kind of like passed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you apply what you've already learned.
yeah. It's not like cancer suddenly came and then you. If I hadn't had that relationship of trust with the Lord,
Good.
I think I would be in a tailspin. I don't know how I could have made it
No,
without
exactly.
him.
I think you mentioned how like, it was that moment at the Botanic Gardens, right? Where you had this moment of like, I haven't lived yet, right? How has it changed now after?
Yeah.
Were there some things that your perspectives have shifted about life?
Yeah,
How are you living now that's
for
quite
sure.
different?
Yeah, for sure. Because I grew up in poverty, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were the family that had to queue up for the government issued milk powder.
Mm-hmm.
So you learn how to deny, you learn how to do without, you
Yeah.
learn how to tell yourself, I don't really need this, it's okay, I'm fine. And then that becomes a habit of thinking,
Yeah.
right? Then as an adult, you learn how to sacrifice, you put others first, then you convince yourself that you like to eat the fish bones
Yeah.
because you want to give the fish meat to somebody, right? Then that day at the Botanic Gardens, I felt like, okay, hey, I need to eat the fish.
Wow.
I need to, be in a place of enjoyment. I have
Yeah.
not enjoyed. I have
Yeah.
been giving, sacrificing, and achieving, attaining, goal oriented. But I forgot that there is life. There is
Yeah.
life to live. So I determined that I'm not just going to be a survivor of cancer.
Yeah.
I'm going to live, really live.
I love that.
And cancer is not going to stop me from living. That's why the title of my book, So Much Life
Yes.
Left to Live.
Yeah.
So I came alive, and I began to notice the things that I love. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I really like avocado toast. I'm going to eat it.
I love that.
That
Yeah.
chocolate tiramisu, I'm going to
You're
eat
not gonna
it.
hold back.
It's not like, oh, it's $10. Maybe not today,
Yeah.
like for a special occasion. So I started to, we all save things for occasions.
Yes.
Yeah. So I started to tell myself, like, okay, today is special because I'm alive.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I gave into hobbies. I began to pursue my hobbies and my interests with abandon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So you
good.
start to treat yourself better. I think a lot of women tend not to, like, especially if you're a mother, right, or you are caregiving,
Yeah.
you tend to set aside yourself. You tend not to think about personal development.
Yeah.
Like, would you pursue a hobby or a course that would not result in anything related to your job?
Mm.
Would you just do something for fun?
Yes.
Like, okay, I'm gonna learn dancing,
Yeah.
and then it's $800, but I want to learn dancing.
Yeah.
So a
So
lot
good.
of mothers or women will say, "Oh, hey, it's okay. Maybe next time, maybe when I am fill in the blanks."
Yeah.
So I learned not to I learned not to do that.
Yeah, good. I think to really live, right? Really live out your life. You know, you're talking about your
Yeah.
book.
Mm.
So much life left to live, right?
Yes.
And I think it's so cool that you even wrote this book. Like, can you tell us a little bit about like how this book came about? Um, why did you start writing it?
Okay. So when I discovered that I had cancer, I started to research lah, went online and I could find very, very little information that is practical, written for the local context.
Good.
I it really helps me to be able to imagine like, okay, I go into chemotherapy, what does it look like? I want to have a mental picture so that I can be prepared. I found nothing, zero.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I told myself I need to help with this, like
Yeah.
whether I'm gonna blog or something, So I prayed, and the Lord said, record everything that you go through,
Wow.
put it into a book. So for me, I work in the publishing industry, right? So this is
Yes.
like my rice bowl. I don't really have any difficulties with producing it. Um, but the idea was to conceptualize. I wanted this book to be very practical. So a part of it will describe what I went through. And then on a facing page will be sort of like worksheets for the person who is newly diagnosed.
Yeah.
What do you need to think about? What do you
Yeah.
need to plan? What are the positive thoughts that you can focus on now? What are the good thoughts? So, for example,
Yeah.
at diagnosis, people will be reeling because like, oh no, I have cancer, the big C, I'm going to die, or my life is a mess, etc.
Yeah.
But really, the good thought is it has been discovered.
Yes.
The intruder, I can kick him out now.
Yes.
Right? So when you focus on the positive rather than the negative, it gives you a sense of like, I know how to move forward with this
Good.
thought.
Like reframing.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then it gives also part of the book very practical tips like uh, buy a big folder because you're going to be inundated with forms, doctors' reports, and
Yes.
bills. So you need to start filing things away. Very practical things. And then also stories of people whom I encounter, like nurses who attend to me. I like to know their stories.
Yes.
Where are you from? Why did you end up in nursing? And then I write some of their stories into the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how it ended up. And also there are photographs.
Okay.
So if you want to imagine, right, chemo,
Yes.
you can look at the photos.
Yeah.
It's not too icky. You can stomach it.
Yeah, no, that's great. I also love that the book is not just for the person who's going through cancer. Actually, you wrote some of it to also help the caregivers.
Yes.
Maybe you can talk a bit about that. What were some of the things that, the highlights of that? Like, what can caregivers do, or even just friends or church friends around you, church leaders who want to support? I think that's the biggest problem because, when something like that happens and you've never experienced it, I don't know what to say. I don't know what's the right thing to say. And I don't want to hurt the person. I don't want them to make them feel worse than where they already are.
Exactly.
And go beyond just, I'll pray for you.
Yeah, I tell you something funny. There was a guy a man, he read the book, he loved it. He came back and he bought 20 more to
Wow.
give to his friends. He said that I finally understood when my wife was going through cancer, this is how she was feeling, right?
Yeah.
So from a caregiver's perspective, he found this very helpful.
Yeah.
Because he wants to know, or it helped him to understand how his wife was feeling at the time in retrospect. Right? It helped him to kind of like highlighted his journey for him as well. So for caregivers, I gave very practical tips like what you can say, or basically it's to ask the person,
Yes.
how do you want to relate? Some people like to talk about it. Some people just don't.
Yep.
Right? So you can ask them, do you want to talk? Is there something that you want to share? I'm ready to listen. If you don't want to talk, that's fine too. Then you just do what they are asking you to do. Yeah, then there is like list of things that you can buy for somebody who is going through chemo.
So good. Yeah, so practical.
Like a chemo care pack, so you can put these things together to show them that you care. Very practical things like alcohol wipes lah, moisturizer, something for the smell and, sweets of snacks of different textures and tastes.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, so I think that this book is meant to be sort of like a toolkit for handling, especially when they are newly diagnosed,
Yeah,
because that is when you need a lot of information.
yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah.
I think there's so many people who would need that,
Yeah.
and we'll give this book out, as
Yes,
a gift, on a giveaway on
Yeah.
our Instagram account.
We
So
have
look out for that.
2 copies.
Two
to give
copies so that someone who needs it will be blessed, whether you're a caregiver or you're going through that yourself, right? Actually, I believe that.
Caregivers, they a lot of times when the person is they are caring for is undergoing cancer, they forget that they also need to process their emotions. So in this book, there will be certain pointers for caregivers how they can also
Yeah.
process. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that out of even this experience, not just calligraphy was one thing that came out from that. I also know that you do watercolor painting.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
Thank
I mean, if you've ever seen it, yeah, you'll be amazed. And also, she's giving those away, so you got to look out for that.
Yes.
They're absolutely stunning.
We show them.
Yes, please do. You can show them. So if you're watching this, you'll be able to see a sneak peek of that.
It's a Peranakan house.
Yes.
Patain Road house.
Yeah.
It's actually Kun Sing Road.
Wow.
These are existing houses in Singapore.
Yeah.
So how
beautiful.
that came about, right?
Yeah.
Was so interesting. I like I was saying from my childhood, I'd always been interested in painting, drawing, but it's one of those childhood things like, oh, when I grow up, I'm going to be an astronaut. I want to
Yes.
be a soccer player.
Yeah.
And I always told myself, oh, I'm going to be an artist, but it was a childhood dream. And then you dismiss it as you grow older because, 摊家,
Yeah.
like this one
It doesn't pay the bills.
yeah. So, but while I was undergoing treatment, I started to, because God gave me all these promises about, my treatment, that he would be with me. I started to write them out in calligraphy because that was my hobby. So it was very meditative.
Yeah.
Right. And then I will put colors and so on. So that became a part of my my journey to process my emotions through the use of color and art. And then while it was during that season of recovering from cancer, I had just woken up one morning. My first thought upon waking, it was the Lord speaking to me.
Yeah.
And he says, I want you to embrace your identity as an artist.
Wow.
Then I was like, huh, what? This is like totally out of my frame altogether.
Yeah.
And not half a minute after that, my phone rang. My sister was on the line and she said, hey, we signed up for this Peranakan house painting.
Wow.
The 3 daughters and her, but one of the daughters fell ill.
Yeah.
So would you like to come and take her place?
Amazing.
Because we were already paid for it, so why don't you come? And she had actually, that was her second time asking me. The first time I had turned her down. But the Lord had just spoken to me, right, to embrace my identity as an artist. So I said, okay, I'll go.
Yeah.
So while I was in this house painting workshop, in my heart, I kept telling myself, I'm an artist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I really, really enjoyed it so much. I got hooked onto painting Peranakan houses.
Amazing.
I came back and I painted like dozens.
Wow.
Just for the fun of it, just for the love of it. I went to everywhere in Singapore with conservation houses. I took photos.
Yeah.
I recorded them. I keep a catalog of them and I've been painting them for fun. So what then came next was my oncologist asked me, would I like to join in a fundraising activity, right? He didn't know that I was painting really. So I immediately thought of my houses that I had painted. I said, okay, I will make them into art prints and we can raise funds for cancer. So that was what I did. I think, we raised like maybe close to 3,000, 2005. For an amateur, a beginner like that. So after that, I started to take classes in art, in drawing, in painting. So
I really love that. I think, even in the midst of something so difficult and hard, Like God even gives us a way to live for like that,
Absolutely.
you know, and
Yeah.
to really live, like what you were saying, actually pursue something that was in your heart for such a long time,
Mm.
and then being able to like express that and live that out
Mm.
fully,
Yeah.
is pretty
Yeah,
incredible, right?
it is. Actually, what after my cancer experience, right? And then all this art thing that came about out of it, I felt like cancer was a gift.
Wow,
I felt like God gave me an elevated platform
wow,
to live my life on an elevated level. I don't know how to explain it to you. While I was going through cancer, I was
yeah,
so joyful.
yeah,
I was very joyful most of the time. I mean, there were days when you hit
of
the dumps,
course.
right? And then you feel
Mm-hmm.
like a sack of potatoes.
Yeah, of
But
course.
there were days when I would be just joyful. I feel like the birds are singing because I'm alive. The sun is beautiful, sunsets, and, it's for me. I felt like there was just such an intensity of living
Yeah,
while I was going through the cancer, right?
yeah,
And all of that poured itself into the colors. I just love colors.
yeah,
There was just an enjoyment of making a mess with paints and colors. I felt like God gave me a new trajectory.
yes,
It was like I'm going this way, and then cancer, and then just my life just took a complete different turn. And I wouldn't have exchanged it for anything in the world. I
wow,
mean, I don't wish cancer on anyone, but I wish that you will have that kind of a God moment in your life where suddenly you feel that you are living on another level,
yeah,
where you are not holding back and waiting for an occasion to start living.
yeah.
Some people are like,
So
oh,
good.
when I slim down, then I will buy that dress.
Yeah.
Maybe this is your day to go and buy the dress.
I love that. That's your sign. Those listening, this is your sign to buy that dress.
Yeah. Or you think like, oh, I'm going to be generous and be a giver when I get rich. Hey, if you don't give now, right? I mean, when is the day going to come where you start to feel rich enough, right? I feel like
Yes.
we really have to start living now. We
Yeah.
have to start eating, living,
Yeah.
dressing, growing, developing yourself, doing whatever it is that you want your life to be
Yeah.
now. Like
Yeah.
start now,
No,
today.
that's right. Like,
Yeah.
don't wait for a major life moment like that, right? Because it could be anything. It could be you lost your job, losing a family member. It could be, some unexpected situation that comes into your life. But sometimes we almost like God brings that moments to us, and then it depends on how we respond to. I think our response is important,
Very
right? Not
important.
everyone, we all go through difficulty, we
Yes,
all go through hardship,
absolutely. Yeah.
but I think the response is important. How do we now react or respond to God? You could have said, I'm done, I'm out of this. Like, if this is the life that you've called me to live, I will, and that's it, that's the line drawn in the sand. But the way you took it was different. You say, hey, actually, this is now a platform. Now,
Yes.
this is an opportunity.
Yeah.
Now, this is like almost a new lease of life, which I
Absolutely.
find so inspiring.
It is a new lease of life. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it amplified a lot of things that were important in my life, amplified the message of my life.
Yeah.
So what was very funny was, I was writing all these scriptures like, fear not, I'm with you, and, making them into calligraphic art.
Yes.
And there were the people who responded to those messages were people from all different cultures, countries, and belief systems.
Yeah.
They would say, oh, I need to hang this on my wall because every day I want to be not afraid. I want to, I will fear not, and I will do the big things. And I think that this is something that people respond to because it is true.
Yeah.
It is true that we don't have to be browbeaten by difficulties or challenges.
Yeah.
We can live through it,
Yeah.
not just survive it, but while you're going through it, to really live.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, Dorothy, you're an inspiration.
Mm.
I think you're an inspiration to so many. So I'm so thankful that you came on here and shared this story with us.
Thanks.
And hopefully, yeah, I look out for that. Those who are listening, look out for all the stuff that we're going to give out. We're going to give out some books,
Yes.
some of those beautiful Peranakan
Houses.
watercolor works too. And so look out for that on our Instagram account.
Mm.
Well, thank you so much for being here,
Thanks,
Dorothy. And thank you so much for listening today. I hope you were encouraged too by Dorothy's story. And I hope that this episode has helped you to live full.